Hi everyone, welcome back to Motivate. I'm Dr. Mohi Saraugi, a GP by profession, but here I'm swapping prescriptions for perspective. Before we begin today's episode, I want to pause for a moment and thank all of you for the love you showed for my recent Motivate episode on grief. The number of downloads does not matter to me as much as the messages I received from all of you. Thoughtful, deeply human reflections. I read every one of them, and honestly, it meant a lot. I'm not very tech savvy, but one day I will find a way to share some of those reflections anonymously because they deserve to be read and felt. Moments like these remind me why I created this podcast to bring warmth, science, and steadiness into complex medical and emotional spaces because health and feeling good should not always feel overwhelming. So, truly, from my heart, thank you for being here and for listening the way you do. Today's topic is something small, metallic, unfashionable, and absolutely central to how human energy works: iron. Iron quietly decides whether your cells feel like lit candles or low battery mode. Most people associate iron with spinach, red blood cells, and cartoon strength. But iron in your body is far more interesting than that. Today, we'll talk about what iron actually does, why your body cares so much about it, how deficiency shows up, and why it often gets missed. What iron blood tests really mean, and why this is one of the trickiest yet very fixable causes of low energy we see in clinical medicine. Iron deficiency rarely walks into a GP clinic dramatically. It walks in and says, I'm tired all the time. My focus is slower. I get breathlessness on stairs. My exercise tolerance has dropped. My child seems tired all the time. My hair is shedding more. And often people add this line, but my hemoglobin is normal. We'll talk about why that sentence can sometimes be misleading, especially in early iron deficiency. Iron is one of my favorite topics because it sits at the intersection of physics, history, biology, and very human experience. Today, we are not going to talk about iron like a lab report. We are going to talk about iron as a living part of you: your energy, your clarity, your breath, your resilience. So let's begin at the beginning because it's a good one. The first iron humans ever touched did not come from the ground, it fell from the sky. Meteorite iron. Ancient Egyptians called it metal from heaven, which is quite poetic but also scientifically fair because iron is formed in exploding stars under immense pressure and heat. Every iron atom in your blood was forged in a star. So, yes, you're literally carrying stardust in your bloodstream. Your oxygen transport system runs on recycled cosmic material, no pressure. Later, when humans learned to extract iron from ore, civilization changed. Iron was stronger and more affordable than bronze. Tools improved, farming improved, infrastructure improved. The Iron Age wasn't just a material upgrade, it was a societal upgrade. And inside your body, iron plays a similar role: infrastructure, oxygen delivery, energy production, performance. Iron is also one of the oldest medical interventions we know. Ancient Egyptian and Greek physicians described pale, fatigued patients with symptoms consistent with anemia. Iron tonics and mineral preparations were used for centuries. In the 17th century, iron filings dissolved in wine were prescribed. Conceptually reasonable for that time, though probably unforgettable in taste. Please don't try that at home. Modern medicine refined the science, but the observation has stayed consistent. When iron runs low, people feel it. Now let's zoom in from history to physiology and see what iron is actually doing inside your body. Iron is chemically very good at handling oxygen and tiny energy transfers. and that makes it uniquely useful in human biology. Every cell in your body needs usable energy to think, move, repair, and function. Inside your cells are tiny energy factories called mitochondria. Their job is to turn nutrients and oxygen into cellular energy, like converting fuel into electricity. To make that conversion work smoothly, several key steps in this energy system depend on iron. Iron supports oxygen transport, cellular energy production, muscle metabolism, immune function, and brain chemistry, all at the same time. If your body were a city, iron would sit in the power grid, the transport system, and part of the communications network simultaneously. Very busy mineral. So, when iron levels are low, energy production becomes less efficient, even when hemoglobin still appears normal, especially in the early stages. You're still operating, just not at full capacity. And that's where our clinical story begins. Now, let's move from what iron does to how low iron actually shows up in real life. Iron deficiency rarely shows up as one dramatic symptom. It usually shows up as a pattern, and once you hear it, you'll recognize it. Fatigue that doesn't feel like sleepiness, stamina that drops before anything else changes, thinking that feels slower, breathlessness on exertion, hair shedding, cold sensitivity, restless legs, sometimes even a fine hand tremor, flattened drive. Individually, each of these gets blamed on lifestyle, stress, hormones, weather, parenting, deadlines, aging, or Mercury being in retrograde. Iron deficiency is more like a dimmer switch than a power cut. Now, before we go further, we need to clear up one very common misunderstanding. Iron deficiency is not the same thing as iron deficiency anemia. They are related, but they are not identical. Anemia means hemoglobin is low. Iron deficiency means iron availability or storage is low. Storage drops first. Symptoms often begin here. Hemoglobin falls later. Let me give you the GP version of this. Your body uses iron like money. You have storage, that is ferritin. You have circulating supply, that is serum iron. You have transport, that is transferrin. And you have delivery output, that is hemoglobin. When supply falls, storage is used first. Ferritin drops before hemoglobin changes. Anemia is the late chapter, not the opening scene. A normal hemoglobin does not guarantee healthy iron status. That's like checking your paycheck and ignoring your bank balance. And this brings us to one of the most useful and most misunderstood iron markers, ferritin. Ferritin is your iron storage marker. Many lab ranges still list very low ferritin values as normal. Clinical experience and research show many people develop symptoms well above the lowest cutoff. Many clinicians use practical cutoffs that are higher than the lowest lab normal range. Below 15, depleted. Below 30, deficient. 30 to 50, often symptomatic. Above 50, commonly more functional for many people. As doctors, we often say context matters first. If you want a deeper dive on medical tests, episode 2 is there for you. In iron and ferritin, context matters most, especially in menstruating women, athletes, children and teens, pregnancy, restless legs, cognitive fatigue cases, poor nutrition intake. One important nuance, ferritin is also a marker of inflammation. It can appear falsely normal or elevated when inflammation is present. That's why doctors interpret ferritin with context, not in isolation. Medicine is pattern recognition, not number worship. Iron deficiency is one of the few conditions where patients think it's stress, friends think it's burnout, Google thinks it's thyroid, Instagram thinks it's mindset, and the lab quietly says, please check ferritin. So, the natural next question is, why does iron drop in the first place? Iron is biologically precious. Your body recycles most of it. Very little is designed to be wasted. So, when iron stores fall, we think in three broad directions: loss, absorption, demand. First, blood loss. The most common reason for iron deficiency worldwide is blood loss. Iron travels inside red blood cells. Lose blood, lose iron. In everyday practice, the most common cause is heavy menstrual bleeding. And this is not normal period tiredness. Clues include changing protection very frequently, bleeding longer than usual, passing large clots, feeling wiped out each cycle. Heavy periods are common, but they are not always normal and they are medically worth discussing. Blood loss can also come from the gut, ulcers, polyps, hemorrhoids, bowel inflammation, celiac disease related damage, occult bleeding you can't see. Here's a clinical rule that matters. In adult men and postmenopausal women, iron deficiency is treated as blood loss until proven otherwise. That's not panic, that's protocol. It's why doctors ask the slightly awkward questions. Second, absorption. Eating iron and absorbing iron are two different events. Absorption mainly happens in the upper small intestine and it depends on health of your gut lining, stomach acid, inflammation status, transfer proteins. Absorption drops with conditions like celiac disease, inflammatory bowel disease, chronic gastritis, bariatric and other intestinal surgeries, and chronic diarrhea conditions. And yes, long term acid suppressing medications, so all the PPIs like omeprazole, pantoprazole, used long term, not short term, can reduce absorption for some people. Stomach acid has a job description beyond heartburn. It helps convert dietary iron into a form the gut can take in, especially plant based iron. Third, diet. There are two forms of dietary iron: heme iron from animal sources, generally absorbed more efficiently, non heme iron from plant sources, absorbed less efficiently and more sensitive to inhibitors. Vegetarians and vegan diets can absolutely support good iron status. They just need planning. Vitamin C with meals helps iron absorption. Iron intake can also fall with highly restrictive diets, chronic dieting, disordered eating patterns, low appetite states, and busy lives that become a beige food life. Fourth, demand. Sometimes iron drops because demand rises. High demand phases include pregnancy, infancy, rapid growth spurts, adolescence, endurance training, recovery after illness or surgery. Pregnancy deserves its own sentence. Pregnancy expands blood volume and builds a placenta and fetal stores. Nature is generous. It is not magical. Substrate is required. One quick note on children: iron needs are higher during growth phases, and deficiency can affect energy, attention, development. That's why we pay attention to iron intake in children. The management is straightforward. We identify it, run a few tests to confirm the cause, improve dietary intake, and use iron supplements when needed in the right dose for age. There's one more situation that confuses people. Sometimes iron is present in the body, but it's not easily available where it's needed. Inflammation can shift iron handling. It's a protective mechanism. The body hides iron away during illness because microbes also like iron. This is why people with chronic inflammation can feel iron deficient even when numbers look less dramatic on paper, and why doctors look at the full pattern, not one value. Most real world iron deficiency fits somewhere into these, either iron being lost, not absorbed well, or needed faster than it can be replaced. At this point, some listeners are thinking, so which one is me? That's exactly the right question. And the answer is we don't guess, we check. So now that we understand what iron does, how deficiency feels, and why it happens, let's talk about the blood tests. Because iron panels look complicated, but they don't have to be. There are a few key markers, and we read them as a pattern, not a single number. First, ferritin. Ferritin reflects iron storage. Think of ferritin as your iron savings account, not today's income, your reserves. Iron is stored mainly in the liver, spleen, and bone marrow inside ferritin. When ferritin drops, reserves are falling. Ferritin changes early, hemoglobin changes late. That's why someone can feel iron deficient and still be told their blood count is normal. Storage runs low before delivery fails. One nuance matters here. Ferritin also rises with inflammation, infection, autoimmune activity, and chronic disease can push ferritin upward even when usable iron is low. A normal ferritin with high inflammation markers deserves a second look. Context always travels with ferritin. Next, let's talk about transport. If ferritin is storage, transferrin is transport. Transferrin is the protein that carries iron through the bloodstream. Think delivery vehicles. When iron availability drops, the body often produces more transferrin, more trucks trying to collect scarce cargo. Higher transferrin can signal lower iron availability. Effort has increased, supply has not. Then, transferrin saturation tells us how loaded those transport proteins are. It's the percentage of transferrin currently carrying iron. Low saturation means many trucks, light cargo. Low transferrin saturation, together with low ferritin, strongly supports iron deficiency. Next is serum iron, and it's the most overinterpreted number. Serum iron measures how much iron is circulating at that moment. It fluctuates. Time of the day, recent meals, supplement timing, inflammation. It's a snapshot, not a reserve marker. Doctors rarely diagnose iron deficiency from serum iron alone. It supports the picture, it does not define it. And lastly, your full blood count. This is where hemoglobin lives. Also, red cell indices like MCV, average red cell size, MCHC, hemoglobin content per cell. In iron deficiency anemia, red cells usually become smaller and paler over time. That is a late finding. Waiting for anemia before recognizing iron deficiency is like waiting for your car to stop before checking the fuel gauge. Iron panels are like airport logistic reports. Ferritin is the warehouse. Transferrin is the trucks. Transferrin saturation is truck occupancy. Hemoglobin is successful delivery. Serum iron is the one photo taken at a random time and overinterpreted by relatives. As doctors, we read all of this as a pattern: tests, symptoms, risk factors, not one number in isolation. And finally, we come to the part most people are really waiting for: what actually works when iron is low. The internet has opinions about iron, loud ones: daily iron, twice daily, never daily, only food, only supplements, add 5 cofactors, buy this brand, avoid that brand. At this point, confusion becomes a side effect. Let's simplify this. clinically and calmly. For most people with iron deficiency, first line treatment is oral iron, tablets, capsules, or liquid preparations. Common forms include iron salts such as ferrous sulfate, ferrous fumarate, ferrous gluconate. They differ mainly in elemental iron content and tolerance. Iron is iron. Marketing is marketing. Choice is guided by tolerance and dose, not brand mythology. Older advice recommended daily or twice or thrice daily dosing depending on the preparation. Newer research shows that in many people, alternate day dosing improves absorption and reduces side effects. Reason: iron take temporarily raises a hormone called hepcidin. Hepcidin blocks further iron absorption for about a day. Spacing doses allows absorption to work better. Sometimes less frequent dosing gives better biological results. Biology loves rhythm. Your clinician decides schedule based on severity and tolerance. But alternate day is now mainstream science. Iron absorption also improves with vitamin C, an acidic environment, and empty stomach if tolerated. But it can drop with tea, coffee, calcium supplements, dairy intake near the dose, high bran foods, antacids, and long term acid suppressors. A simple practical line to remember: taking iron with tea is like sending a delivery truck to a locked warehouse. Polite attempt, no entry. Iron supplements are not charming. Common side effects include constipation, nausea, abdominal discomfort, dark stools. Dark or black colored stools are expected and harmless when someone is taking iron supplements. They are not internal bleeding. Doctors adjust therapy all the time: lower dose, alternate day dosing, different iron salt, liquid form, taking with a small amount of food, slow release forms in selected cases. Iron therapy is adjustable, not all or nothing. A quick word here on intravenous iron. Intravenous iron is not stronger iron, it's a different delivery route. Doctors consider IV iron when oral iron is not tolerated, absorption is impaired, inflammatory bowel disease is active, after certain gastric surgeries, severe deficiency, late pregnancy which needs faster correction, ongoing blood loss continues, or when oral therapy fails. IV iron is a medical decision, not an upgrade package. Route changes, molecule stays the same. Diet does matter, but it helps to keep expectations realistic. We also discussed heme iron, which comes from animal sources and is generally absorbed more easily, and non heme iron from plant sources, which is absorbed less efficiently but still very useful when planned well. Good iron containing foods include things like meat, fish, poultry, legumes, beans, tofu, leafy greens, and fortified grains. And as a simple rule of thumb, make friends with iron rich foods, especially the ones that are deep green and the ones that are protein based. Not a perfect rule, but it's a helpful one. Food does a good job maintaining iron levels over time. But when someone is already moderately deficient, diet alone usually isn't enough to rebuild stores quickly. Maintenance and correction are different jobs. And just a reminder, don't start iron long term without checking levels. And do get advice if you have black stools without supplements, weight loss, or persistent gut symptoms. Iron is a precision mineral. More is not better. More is sometimes harmful. Excess iron increases oxidative stress and can damage organs over time. Treatment follows a sequence: test, treat, recheck, adjust. Not guess, megadose, hope. Medicine, not roulette. Quick note on copper, since it's widely discussed online. Copper is involved in iron metabolism, that's established physiology. Clinically meaningful copper deficiency is uncommon and usually occurs with specific medical conditions affecting absorption. Iron and copper physiology are standard medical school material, not a secret chapter we skipped to revise cough syrup. The internet and medical curricula don't always attend the same lectures, and that's okay. And before we close, let's talk about time frames because iron recovery is not instant, and that's completely normal. Most people start to feel symptom improvement over a few weeks, while iron stores rebuild more slowly over months. For many people, the full replenishment window is roughly 3 to 6 months. Doctors usually recheck ferritin after about 8 to 12 weeks to make sure things are moving in the right direction because bone marrow is not on express shipping and unfortunately Amazon Prime does not deliver to mitochondria. So if you take one thing from today, let it be this. Energy has physiology behind it. And when the physiology is supported, people often begin to feel like themselves again. Iron is one of those things we can measure and restore. That's good, practical medicine. I hope something today stirred a thought, gave you a smile, or simply made you pause. Thank you for listening. I'm Dr. Mohi. Until next time, stay motivated. May your energy feel steady and your strength renewed. And when it runs low, may good science and good care guide you back to coming home to yourself.